Hello, everyone. Let me change this. I'm still getting set up. But hello, everyone. My name is Brittany Lewis. I'm a professional graphic designer and illustrator. And Sundays is the day that I work on my dream project. Hey, Tennessee lady, so happy to have you. Whether you're watching this live or the replay, I really appreciate you for being here. Yeah, so Sundays is the day that I work on my dream project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And this Sunday is, of course, no exception to that. We're going to be picking back up with the Four of Wands, and there is a finish line in sight. I feel like we're finally making some finishing progress on this particular card. But before we get into it, if you would do me a huge favor, if you like this kind of live stream, if you're curious about it or would like to learn more about the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, you just like watching me or whatever you find to like and find interest in this particular live stream, please hit the thumbs up because that helps me out a whole lot. I do have a goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers. Hey Montreal, happy to see you. I do have a goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers. So if you like this kind of thing and you would like to see more and would like to help me reach that goal, make sure that you hit the thumbs up because that helps a whole lot. So of course we are picking back up with this. I guess this is going to be the card that closes us out for the year. We've gotten quite a few cards done this year. Not as many as I would have hoped, but I am glad to be taking my time with it. It's coming together extremely well. So what I'll do here is I'll turn off the sketch just so we can get rid of the extra lines so you guys can see what we've done so far. Last Sunday we left off with the dress of I believe we were working on the dress. Honestly, don't even remember. It's been a long week. But we started off at least with the dress, and I made some progress on it, continuing it Sunday, and then Wednesday we came back and worked on the canopy some more. So there's really not much more to this particular card to do. I have, of course, the canopy, which is still going to take me a while. I'll probably be on it for the next couple of Wednesday streams because I've averaged about 2 hours there. So that will be there for a little bit of time there. But we have our fairy lights to add to the background. We have our broom to finish rendering out, and we need to add some shadow in this to sell the idea of them jumping over this particular broom, getting married, all of the things that comes with the meaning of the Four of Wands. So we're going to pick back up there. So yeah, I hope you guys have had a great week. This week has been an adventurous week for me. Starting probably, I would say, Saturday, and then just the whole week has been a straight up adventure. So I did something that I was afraid to do. Glad I did that. It didn't go the way that I wanted it to go, but it was a great experience. Did that. Went to a graduation. What else we do this week? Went to photography club. I had a whole bunch of stuff going on this week. Got some progress on this image, which I'm really happy for. So Wednesday, in case you guys missed it, I streamed for about 3 hours and I was exclusively working on the top of this picture, right? Trying to get these red flowers in, trying to get that part finished because it's a little tedious. So I don't necessarily want to do that on Sundays, but I may show you a little bit of that here in a moment just to kind of guide you in how I replicate an image. Now this part of the image, I ain't gonna tell you no tale, because there was so much detail to it. It was the aspect of the image that I actually traced, and it kind of helped me save time, and it actually helped me get the look that I was going for as opposed to an abstracted version of the reference. So I was able to use that, trace it, and now I'm just sort of painting what I see in the reference image, and it is taking a while to get there, but it is a lot of fun. It's very relaxing. So I spent 3 hours on it Wednesday, which was nice because I don't really talk on those Wednesday streams. I'm just in the chat. So that helped out a whole lot. Got a lot of that done. But I may show you that and I may not. We'll see how it goes. But for right now, we're probably going to focus on the background a little bit. Adding some fairy lights to these pillars so that we know that these are 3 of the 4 wands. And then the fourth wand will be the broom. So again, hope y'all had a good week. It has been an adventure. I'm really tired. I don't know if I'm normally talking 90 miles an hour. But I am happy to be here. Of course, Sundays is like my favorite day because I get an opportunity to work on this particular project. Now, last Sunday we did a discussion because we had some new people come in, some new people message me about the project itself. So just in case you missed it, if you go back to, it'll be for December the 14th, the stream from December the 14th, I did a whole breakdown on the project, why I chose to do this project, my thoughts behind it. Of course, we'll cover a little bit of it every Sunday as we go along. But in essence, just in case you guys did miss that particular stream, this project is a dream project, right? It's one of those things that I had in mind, wanted to do for some years. I was extremely terrified to do it, to get started with it, because I tend to overthink. I think it's natural to do that for some people. We tend to sort of create these scenarios that's really guided by fear. Hey, Bob, child. Guided by fear and being afraid of something new, being afraid of change, being afraid of moving forward, and all of those kinds of things. So that was sort of the battle that I was having with myself to get started. I eventually did. This project started late 2019. After some challenges, right? Some challenges within my art career and all of the things that came with freelancing for me at that time, as well as setting up at comic book conventions, all of the challenges that came along with that kind of came to a head 2019, and I was like, you know what, let me just start. Right, let me just go ahead and start the project, and then we'll go from there. Same with the live streams. A live stream is something that I kind of wanted to do. I did it really because I needed to hold myself accountable. I still wanted to, and so I was afraid to do it, jumped out there and did it. I didn't see it being a series, but it became a series, and I'm glad to have it, and I'm glad to have you guys here. So yeah, this took me a while to do, and I've been working on it for a while, right? So this is, again, 6 years now in the making. We're more than halfway done, so I'm real excited about that. That makes a huge difference, I feel like, for my own morale, just to be at least halfway done. It seems like a lot, or it seems maybe not like a lot, because people we're really used to things coming out extremely fast. We're used to these sort of overnight success stories, and we're used to things, the instant gratification. So a lot of me learning in this project is learning how to navigate and be patient with myself, and not necessarily seek the instant gratification, because it's just going to take as long as it's going to take. Right? It's something that I had to sort of come to terms with and, make peace with, and all of that. It works in my favor because I do get an opportunity to kind of take my time with it, which was one of the reasons why I did not do pre-orders early on. So that was one of the pushes that I was having. A lot of people were asking, how could they pre-order this deck? Was it for sale? And I did contemplate it. I was thinking maybe if I did pre-orders, then I would, speed it up a while. But I think that would put unnecessary pressure on myself, because I feel like once I have your money, right, of course I need to get the thing that you pay for out so that you can enjoy it and use the product. I didn't want that kind of pressure on myself early on. Now, when we get to the point of manufacturing this project, I may very well do pre-orders. I have not decided just yet how I would like to handle that. We may do pre-orders. Kickstarter is my preferred, method. I think because of the discoverability of decks on Kickstarter, I've backed lots and lots of projects on Kickstarter, and the majority of them were tarot decks. Some of them were some that I found through Kickstarter, just kind of browsing, or like getting an ad from Kickstarter, or getting like an email from Kickstarter to let me know that that deck was available or was something that I could purchase. So Kickstarter would probably be the ideal situation. I'm almost certain that comes with its own set of challenges. Right? Because I have backed quite a few projects. Again, a couple of them have had some of those challenges and have had, situations where they weren't being communicative to the people who were backing them, or there were issues with delivering the product and all of that. So I've experienced quite a lot just as a consumer, from the consumer perspective through Kickstarter. But I think going through that will sort of help me try to navigate that space and avoid certain things, so that the people who are backing the project, if that is the avenue that we go through, for the people who are backing the project, they'll sort of be in the loop of what's going on and whatnot. So I know that pre-orders is another avenue, because I do have my own website, so that gives me a little bit of control. I just like the security of Kickstarter, because of course they have their own ecosystem. I don't know yet how it will work, so I have looked into it. I think I looked into one of the third-party systems that works with Kickstarter to help creators sort of manage the whole process. So that's been done. The research on that has been completed. So it's just a matter of, at this point, just finishing the deck and then going from there. But I did not want to take pre-orders early on. I still don't right now, right? I want to get to a point where I'm at least maybe 5 cards away and have the majority of the book finished, right? The little white book that'll come with the deck. I kind of want to have at least 5 cards left to do and the majority of that little white book completed. Ideally, I would have it all done and then we just kind of go into Kickstarter or pre-orders or whatever the case is and go from there. That would be an ideal situation, I think, just so that it's less stress on me, right? Less stress on me, less stress on you guys. Very clear in what is available, what is not available, and then we can just kind of go from there. So, yeah, it's a lot of learning involved in this project, I will say. I have enjoyed it. I have had every emotion that there is to have when it comes to this particular project, just because so much is involved. Now, this is one of the largest projects that I've undertaken, for sure, by myself. I have taken on some large projects and have been a part of some large projects. One of the largest that I took on when I was working in the corporate setting is that I worked at a space where we had a huge order, right? It was like 200 units. I had to design the advertising that is a part of this unit. And I don't want to say what to give away where I was working, but I had to design some advertising to go on this thing. And at the place that I was working, we not only designed it, but we also manufactured it. So as a part of my job, not only did I have to come up with the design that goes on it, I actually had to put it together, manufacture it, and install it on the items that they were going to. So there were 200 units of that, and I completed that entire project by myself. Now with that, I was only designing, I think, 2 things. I designed a front side and a back side for this item, right? And then I had to manufacture each of those, but it was just 2 designs all together, and it was just a matter of making it, putting it together, and installing it. But I've never really taken on a project where there are 78 individual images. There is a book with, each of the interpretations, all of the information for how to use the product that I'm creating and all of that. So this is a new experience, right? But again, I've learned a whole lot, and I've really just sort of looked at it as an opportunity to learn. I think that's really, really important when you're doing something new, when you're doing something large scale. Sort of have patience with yourself, and then just look at each opportunity, each sort of facet of it as a learning experience and as a learning opportunity. Even in those failures, right? Even in the things that don't necessarily work out according to plan. Even in that, right? There's a lesson in that if you go for it, right? You make sure you don't get stuck in the woe is me, right? And then you move forward and you kind of learn from it and do better with the next thing. So I actually am getting ready to prepare for the next set of cards. What I did yesterday, just kind of in my free time, was I looked at the 2 of the cards that I had started and just failed at, right? That was the sun and the moon. I have 4 of the major arcanas left to do for this project. The sun, the moon, the star, and the chariot. All of them I have tried at a certain point. But I remember actually getting to the point of rendering the sun and the moon, just kind of rendering out ideas to do that. So I pulled them up to see if it was something that I could use so that I can move forward and, just pick it back up. It is not, but what it did was it kind of sparked a little bit of imagination for me. I think the illustrations are really, really good. I think they're a good start. I just don't think they fit this particular project. But in that, I just kind of learned how to pivot, right? So I had those few cards, and those aren't the only ones that I tried and just didn't work out the way that I wanted them to work out. But those, what am I doing? I'm running off at the mouth for one. There we go. Okay. I wanted to make sure that this was on its own separate layer. Okay. But as I was saying, a lot of it comes down to pivoting, right? So when something doesn't work out, don't give up too easily on yourself. Don't sort of just throw in the towel right away. Maybe you try something different. Maybe you approach it from a different perspective. So a great example of this was this week, because this week's been a very eventful week. This week, I mentioned wanting to learn tattooing, right? So as a part of that, I have to find an apprenticeship. That's just part of the law here in Tennessee. Some places, I don't know if that's necessary. I think it's important to learn in an actual environment of people who are doing the thing that you want to do. So I actively sought it out, right? I was terrified to do this. I was real scared. And I know people who do tattoos. Like, I know people who own their own shops. I know people who do this for a living and enjoy it and all of that. But just sort of putting myself out there in a very vulnerable way, and speaking to people who I may have been familiar with, but may not have been familiar with me, and just kind of cold calling and showing up. Right? It was terrifying. right? And I got rejections, right? I got a couple rejections to my face. No problem. Some of it I was like, I get it, right? Being a little bit older, I kind of understand that that's just part of the game. It's just part of the process. But in that, because I had experienced rejections from my top two, like the two places I really wanted to go to and learn from, I could have been like, yeah, dog, but I guess this ain't for me. You know what I mean? Could have threw in the towel. And I was disappointed for sure, because again, those were my top two options for learning and mentoring with. It just didn't work out. All things in divine timing. You definitely don't want to be somewhere where it's not in alignment. You don't want to force those types of situations, but you also don't want to give up. What I took from that was first of all, was able to sort of speak to and just have a regular conversation with the people who I was asking to mentor me, and just kind of get some tips and some tricks and some things to look out for, things to avoid, places to avoid, people to avoid right here in my city, shops to avoid, shops that might be interested, shops that may not, all of that. I was able to get quite a bit of information from people who were doing the thing that I was interested in learning and doing. And so from that, it was like, okay, so I'm learning this particular aspect of this journey did not work out. They are telling me what a lot of artists, because I'm sure all know each other, or a lot of them know each other, right? Don't want to experience and don't want to have people come in and ask them for. I'm also learning that it's a super popular field because it's a cool job. To me, it just makes sense because it's very much in line with what I already do. But lots of people want to do it, so it's super popular. And learning more about that, right? So from that, instead of giving up on it, it's like, okay, well, let me slow down. I'm not in a particular rush, right? It's something I would like to learn to do, something I had wanted to do a few years ago. Just the timing just wasn't right for it. Now is a better time, but I may have to slow down, readjust my expectations, readjust my approach, and then figure out a way to do it differently, right? That is sort of how it has to go, and how it has gone with this particular project as well. So anytime something doesn't necessarily work out the way that I want it to, right, I just pivot. You feel it. You feel the disappointment. If there's disappointment, you feel the frustration. If there is frustration with the cars that I had done that did not work out, I felt like, okay, it's frustrating because I'm not able to render the image that I want to render. I'm not able to represent the ideas that I have in my mind for these particular cars. It's not coming together the way I wanted to. So instead of me sort of worrying too much about these particular cars that are not working out, these particular illustrations that are not working out, these shops that are not taking me as their apprentice, these artists that are not taking me as their apprentice, appreciate the experience and then pivot, right? Move on to something else, or you move on to a different approach, or you slow down, you reevaluate, and you just continue to move forward. So now I'm backtracking with my cars, because I did want to look at them and make sure that there was, or just to kind of see if there was something that I could use from the illustrations that I already done. Again, they were great starts, right? They just did not fit this particular image. But where I had been stuck on them, now that it has been some time that I've worked on them, I'm getting a little bit of inspiration tingling up in my mind for these cards. So as I proceed to move forward with the next set, it may be that I backtrack and go to the major arcanas. I have not made that decision firm yet. So and I said this last Sunday, next few days, I have to make a decision. I have to, because we're coming to a close, or coming to the end of this particular card. So we have to be ready to move forward with a new set, right? Because I like to design these and render them out in sets. That helps me stay focused. That helps me stay on track, so that when I finish one, I'm not twiddling my thumbs, right? And we can continue to move forward and continue to get this project ready to go. So what I am doing is just kind of laying in some dots, and this may not work either. So anytime I'm working on a car, I'm not necessarily reaching for perfection right away. I am allowing myself just to do, right? Just to create, just to try things, just to see what works, just to see what doesn't work. And then I can, again, pivot, right? I feel like this goes along the lines of the way you do one thing is the way you do all things. I heard that from, I think, Huion said that. So some stuff doesn't apply to just one thing, right? So learning to pivot also applies while I'm painting, right? That applies while I'm creating an illustration, while I'm coming up with a concept. That applies to all aspects of life. If things don't work out, you have to kind of evaluate whether it's something that's just not going to work out, right? And you just need to let it go. Or if it's something that may not work out the way that you intended it to, but maybe you can try to change things, rearrange things, and change your perspective of things so that it'll work out in a slightly different way. So that's kind of the approach that we're taking here. Now I have a symmetry ruler on. This is something that we were working with early on in this particular card process. This helps cut down the amount of work I do in half, because what it allows me to do is to draw on one part of the image and then it'll mirror itself on the other side. So I don't have to do this twice. It is symmetrical. It looks good, right? So it looks the way that I need it to look. So I'm not necessarily trying to match the other side manually and all of that. Kind of use the tools that are at my disposal. Now, I want to create the illusion that these lights are sort of wrapping around these pillars. I'm doing that just sort of where I place the dots. Again, this may not work out, but I'm just laying down some dots right for now. They're yellow, which is close to the color that I want them to be. What I'll do after this is we're just going to experiment to see how I can make this look like fairy lights. The way that I'm going to approach it is once I get these dots laid in, again, not reaching for perfection, I will duplicate this layer. And then after I duplicate the layer, I'm probably going to change the blend mode on it, and I'll probably blur out some aspect of it. That'll allow me to get the sort of illusion of light, the illusion of glowing, right? And then from there, because these are lights, we want it to make sense in the scene. We don't just want to put these dots, random dots in the scene and just leave them there. We want to make sure that that light bounces off of the leaves that they affect. And so we want it all to make sense, right? Everything sort of plays on each other, and we want things to play well with each other, right? So that is where we are on this particular card, and that's what I'm doing. It's not very difficult. It's just a matter of allowing yourself to experiment to see again what works and what doesn't. And also keeping in mind the nature of things, right? So I know that once we get to the bottom of this, the lights are probably going to bunch up a little bit. So we'll let them get closer and closer as we move forward. And then we'll just kind of play it by ear, play with those blend modes, see what works, what doesn't work, and then we'll move forward from there. So this card is coming together extremely well. Again, this was one of those I knew was going to take me a long time to do. I didn't know it was going to take me this long, right? But I am glad that I gave myself this bit of challenge, because I have a lot of cards that are really nice and they have really, really beautiful backgrounds fleshed out where leaves are drawn in. Couple of examples of that would be the Hermit, as well as the Queen of Pentacles. The Queen of Pentacles is the woman that's sitting in the greenhouse, and she has all these beautiful foliage around her. And then I have images where I didn't necessarily render them as much. So the backgrounds and things like that are a little more abstract. I wanted to have a card within the minor arcana cards that was fleshed out. So that I feel like it would balance out the sort of abstract versus the very rendered, very heavily detailed cards. So that's kind of what I'm doing. Now, this is what we're looking like so far. Not too bad, not too shabby at all. We do want to, again, make this feel like this is a part of this environment. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to keep this as my original lights layers, just in case whatever I do to this moving forward I don't like. I can kind of backtrack and go back to my original lights layer, and I'm going to label it OG lights. Right from here, I'm going to duplicate this, which is nice feature. I'm going to duplicate it, which means it's just going to make a copy of it. And then from here, what I could do is I actually gonna make 2 copies. So make 2 copies, duplicate that again. So for the first copy that I made, I'm actually going to blur this out. And I'm hoping that it doesn't take a whole lot of time to do, but I'm going to apply a Gaussian blur that's going to give us that glow effect. Now, because this is a large file, it may take a while for it to show up, so that we can kind of see how it looks. I kind of want it to look nice and blown out. So let's see what it looks like there. It's going to take it a minute, but we will be able to see a little bit of the blur as it moves across the page. So far, that looks great. That looks actually exactly what I want. So we're going to blur it just a little bit more. We want to be able to see it around each of the individual lights, but we also want it to look like a blur. So we're going to start there. If I like it, we'll keep it. If not, then what we'll do is backtrack a little bit. So far, that looks exactly right. Now, it may be too bright and distracting because now that I'm looking at the scene, that's all I'm seeing. However, it may play to our benefit for this particular project because the idea is that we're counting these 4 wands, right? So we want to make sure that our eyes go to the 4 wands, but we also want to make sure that as we're reading this particular card, we see what else is going on, right? Now, also add the lights to the broom because I want to make sure that we connect those 4 elements as the 4 wands of this tarot deck or of this tarot card. So we'll go from there. But that looks pretty good, right? So I'll zoom in so you guys can see what I did. I just added a blur, and these circles are not perfect by any means, and they don't have to be because we're remembering that we're designing for a card, right? We want it to be just enough. That looks good. I don't know if you guys can tell the glow. I'll turn it off so you can see it. Off. Okay, so that's off. And then this is on. Yeah, so we get a little bit of a soft glow. Exactly what we want, right? We just don't want it to take too much attention from what's happening in the scene, but we do want it to feel like a part of it. So what I can do in the second copy that I made of these lights is I can kind of play with the blend mode. I can change it to maybe a glow that makes it whiter lights, right? That's nice. I can also take down the opacity so that they're not so bright. Maybe something like that. And we just play with the different settings to see how we like it. Now, yesterday I mentioned, hey, Draw Sketchbook, so happy to see you. Yesterday we went to photography club, which is something that me and my son have been doing together because we both have interest in photography. For me, I shoot with film. I use an AE1 program, which is a Canon camera, and then we have the camera that I'm using for this live stream, which is a digital camera. It is a 6D Mark II. So that was what we went to photography club with yesterday, and we had so much fun. But one of the things that the way it works here, there are a couple of clubs here in Memphis. The one that I went to was the one that was sponsored by the library, and again, I had so much fun. So photography for me is very much a hobby, just something that I like to do. When my son was younger, I had taken maybe 1,000 pictures, no lie, 1,000 pictures over the course of him growing up and developing, up to the point where he got to a certain age. But I had taken so many pictures, and I would take pictures of my nieces and nephews, and I would take pictures of my family, and just would take pictures, enjoy taking pictures, right? So ironically, not of myself, but I do enjoy taking pictures of other things. So anyhow, I bought my AE1 program when he was a baby, and I was thinking he was 3 or 4, but I did find the first set of pictures that I had taken with it, and that is a film camera. Just in case you guys are not familiar with it, it's a film camera. So I found some of the first pictures, and he was like maybe 3-4 months old when I purchased that camera. But anyhow, so the way that the club works is that every month they have someone come in, and then they have like speakers. So last month they talked a little bit about Lightroom, which was a little boring. I ain't gonna lie to you. It was, and I think it was boring for my son too because it wasn't hands-on, and I think we're both hands-on learners. Like we would like to, we learn from doing, right? Making mistakes and kind of going through the process. But yesterday's photography club was a lot of fun because the guy that was there talked a lot about equipment, and then we were able to put it to use and take the pictures. So I'm coming back around to a point, right? So one of the points that he made is something that actually crosses over to what I do, is that he said that surely there are rules. Like, of course, there are rules in photography. People usually do the rule of thirds, which is something I actually do in illustration as well. We go by the rule of thirds when we're setting up a composition. That will help you sort of tailor the story to certain things, draw the eye to certain places, and that's cool, right? But the point that he was making, and is one that I actually live by as a creator and as an illustrator, is that even though there are rules, you have to be comfortable with breaking the rules. Know the rules so that you can break them, right? But when you're creating, you want to do what feels right and what looks good to you. So he was like, I take pictures that look good to me. I know the rules, right? But I frame my images based on what I like, what looks good to me. And that's really very much the stance that I take when it comes to creating illustrations. There are rules that I learned in college, right? There are things that I learned, and theories that I learned, and practices that I learned, and habits that I'm sure I picked up from learning art in college. But at the same time, a large part of it is just what looks good to you, right? You have to kind of go with what looks good to you. So as I am tweaking these lights, as I am sort of putting these details in, Of course, there are certain things that I will do that kind of follow the rules to an extent, but mostly to make the image make sense. But for the most part, what I'll do as I'm illustrating is kind of go with what feels good, right? I wouldn't say that there is a right or wrong. There are, of course, things that you can do that are going to be very jarring to the eye. If that's what you're going for, then it works the way that it's supposed to work, right? But if it's not, then it is important to know sort of why it's jarring and how you can fix it as an illustrator. And so, but the bulk of it is just kind of doing what feels good for you. So it's pretty much what we're doing here. And so I enjoyed that. I don't know if you guys are into photography or like what your hobbies and stuff are. I have a lot of hobbies. I do. I have a lot of things that I'm interested in. And I guess not so ironically, most of them kind of center around creativity and being creative and sort of creating images and ideas and things like that. For instance, I write, you know what I mean? I like photography. I like cameras and gear and stuff like that. So when I was, my son was expressing the interest in it, I remember, so he has his own film. He has his own AE1 program now. So I'm super happy about that. But he had like a little point and shoot camera, and I had like a whole stash of film. So like he was able to do that. But he has his own AE1 program that he got for his birthday recently, right? And so I was able to pull out mine because I hadn't fooled with it in a long time, and I had forgotten all of this stuff I had for this camera, like different lenses and filters and all kinds of stuff, man. It was like the same feeling I had when I found all them art supplies in my closet. I was like, oh, I remember buying all this. I remember enjoying it and being super excited about it and like taking a chance on it. So for him to show that interest, it was fun for me because I printed out a copy of the manual so he can, get to know his own camera. And it's just a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed being able to kind of go out with him and take him to that. Now, again, that first club we went to, the first club meeting, it was boring. And I was like, child, I hope this don't discourage him from having interest in it. So to combat that, we went out and did some nature shots. And he does so well. He don't like me to brag on him. And I don't know if he can hear me because he's in the other room. But he does really, really well in photography. Super proud of him. And so same thing happened yesterday. But yesterday, because we had a better instructor and because we were talking about equipment and how to manage your settings and your aperture and your ISO and all of that, we were able to sort of put all of that into use. And so it was a lot of fun. But what I found very interesting, because I take pictures just because I like to take pictures, but sort of learning the technical aspects of it and seeing the overlap from photography to what I already do in illustration was really, really interesting to me. I really enjoyed it. And it was just nice. It was nice to hear other creators create and just kind of to see the crossover. So even though they're two very different artistic mediums, I can kind of take whatever I learned yesterday at photography club and bring it over into my illustration. And I feel like that just kind of makes me an overall better artist. One of the things that I think they both had in common is the idea of observing, right? You observe the world. So when I go into learning a new artistic skill or learning to draw certain things, whether that's portraits, whether that is landscapes, which I hope to do, those learning to observe shapes really cross over, right? So Draw Sketchbook says, my public library doesn't have an art club, but it has a maker space with 3D. Oh, with 3D, excuse me, let me finish reading the with 3D printer, Cricut machine, and a laser cutter, etc. That is so awesome. See, that's what we don't have. I wish we had that. I wish we had something like that. So there is a place here in Memphis called the Crosstown Concourse. There they offer like artist residencies and things like that. And they have a space similar to it, but it's not like... It's one of those subscription things, like I guess joining the gym where it's like $80 a month and they have access to all of that. But man, if you could take advantage of some of that, that's kind of how it has been. I didn't realize, I know Memphis has its reputation, which was interesting. They came up in our class yesterday too. I think a lot of times people sort of have an idea of Memphis specifically because of the things that they put out in the news and all of that. But I've been here for a long time, I would say for the majority of my adult life, right? It's a great city. And so what I did not know, and what I'm finding as I'm sort of going through all of these different resources and stuff within the city, I had no idea they had stuff like that. We were looking for something to do, and I was like, well, let me check the library, because I remember when my son was a baby, I used to take him for story time, and they would do story time, and they would do like different activities and stuff like that. I had no idea they had so much available for adults. I was like, and technically this is, I think the photography club is supposed to be for teens and adults, but the two times I've gone, the last time I went, it was just older women, and this time it was all older people, with the exception of my son and one other teenager. So it was 2 teenagers, and then everybody else was just old folks, right? Older people. And so I don't know, but man, if you guys can take advantage of your local library, I just didn't know. I had no idea those kinds of resources were available. But man, especially a Cricut machine, especially as someone who is thinking about going into conventions, if you can get it to a point where you can print some of that stuff out, there you go. I've seen people make stickers. That's it. If you can use that Cricut machine to make your stickers, let me tell you something. That is such an awesome resource. Now, I wonder, do you have to buy like your own supplies? But even then, you're still saving like $100 some odd dollars for a Cricut machine or more. I think they might even go for more. And to be able to use that and make as much as you need to make, I envy you, man. I certainly wish we had something like that wasn't like a subscription thing like that they have at the Crosstown Concord. But that is so awesome. Yeah, the library got it going on, man. I ain't talking about just for people that like books and stuff. They have so many like activities and like clubs and all kinds of stuff, man. I just recently again discovered this last month since Draw Sketchbook says you have to bring your own supplies. Yeah, if that's all right. Shoot, yeah, buy your own supplies and take the bad boys up there and then just use it and make your stickers and things like that. They will save a whole lot of money. I feel I'm team DIY when it comes to certain things, especially for like the convention space, as much as you can. Of course, you want to make sure that you're DIY to a certain quality, but for sure, if you can save yourself time and money by just going to the library and using that Cricut, baby, use the heck out them doggone resources. But yeah, you have to look locally. A lot of times we're sort of reaching for, and I guess because we're so connected to the world through the internet, a lot of times we're sort of looking for resources and things like that outside of our immediate like surroundings. But a lot of stuff is available to us locally. So I'm team library. And for us, Memphis has quite a few branches. So there's one not far, one in my neighborhood. The one that has a photography club is a ways out. It's going towards North Memphis. But it was such a nice time. Like, I had so much fun. There's another one that I really like going to that's in another area, part of the city, that has Spanish that's coming up on Saturdays. They be having knitting and crocheting and all kinds of stuff, right? And all of it's grant funded, so it's free for us as people who are living whatever city that you live in to go on and use. Man, take advantage of that stuff. I swear to goodness. I am team go to the library. And I had no idea they had so much stuff. I had no idea. I was like, man, they got it going on. I also found that I'm sure this is across the nation, where if you have a library card, you can also connect to Udemy. It used to be that you could connect to LinkedIn Learning, I believe, for free, but I guess whatever happened, they kind of canceled that subscription. But now it's Udemy, right? So here's where this is awesome. Let's say, for instance, that you are trying to sort of pivot into a new career and you want to take a class online. For instance, I had an interest a little while ago in UX UI before I was like, you know what I mean? So I was taking some classes in Udemy and UX UI just to kind of learn about that. They have classes on 3D sculpting that will translate to those 3D printing. So if you would like to learn Blender, or I think Maya is one of the other 3D sculpting programs that you can use, all of that's available on Udemy. And so the way that it works here in Memphis is if you just take your library card and then you sign up for it through the library, and then the library has their own password to access this Udemy platform that's specific to the libraries. And so from there you can access all of these classes, right? So let's say, for instance, you want to pivot into tech. They have your A+ certification classes there. They may even have them, of course, in your city. They have A+ certification classes. They have UX UI classes. They have graphic design classes. I don't know if I found any or even look for any Illustrator classes, but I'm almost certain they have those. So whatever is available on the normal Udemy platform, you get access to that free through your library. Listen, when I tell you, I was like, say what? I think I learned about that on Thread. Somebody was like, yeah, you got your library card, you can go to LinkedIn Learn It. And I was what? Excuse me? I said, you could do what now? So I went, and it was LinkedIn Learning for a while, and that was cool. I didn't like the way the LinkedIn Learning was set up, but I did find quite a few resources. I didn't get a chance to finish it before they made the switch, and then it just switched from LinkedIn Learning to Udemy. I believe there are some other similar resources, like they have a platform where you can learn foreign language, and all of this. I'm sure Memphis is not special, so I'm almost certain that a lot of the other library systems and things like that have access to the same information. But there is no excuse, I feel like, to not learn something if you're interested in it, right? There are so many resources out here. And again, I had no idea. I was like, come on, public library. Let's get it. Let's get some things going on. So I'm really, really excited about that. But yeah, if you guys can look into that, if you're looking for like structured learning and things like that. Now, what I did find, just kind of being curious about the certification courses that they have. So for instance, tech specifically, I know that they have like certain certifications that you can take. I don't think that you can take the certification tests through Udemy, but certainly they have it laid out where you can take the classes. And then there are multiple classes for multiple things, right? So you may have 2 and 3 people who are doing like Blender boot camps, right? And then you can go through, read the reviews for each of the ones, watch like a preview of the class to see if it's something that you would enjoy, and then take it for free. It's crazy, man. It's out there. So just in case you guys were not aware of how awesome the public library system is, while it is, right, because the way that funding and things like that is being sort of moved and shaped and sort of changed, I would highly recommend sort of looking at your public library system. So what I'm getting ready to do, just to pivot just a bit, now that I have my lights in here glowing, because these are lights and because they are glowing, there's going to be a little bit of a bounce light on the leaves as well as the things that are surrounding these lights. Now, however bright or heavy we make this is kind of up to us. I don't want to do overkill when I do this, and it's going to be super duper simple. I'm actually going to grab a pen tool instead of my brush, because I'll get a cleaner line. I also get a variation in the line weight. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in some strokes of this color, and I may go a little more saturated, but a little bit lighter in value. And we'll see how that feels. If it feels too strong, then we'll kind of pare it down and lighten the saturation a little bit. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bounce light underneath or wherever it fits for the thing that I'm adding it to. So for instance, we have a little bit of light that catches there. Because this is super close to where this light source is, we might add a little bit of light here. And this is going to help polish off our image, right? So anywhere we have this sort of light that kind of touches a bit, again, we don't want to go overboard. We just kind of want to add it in just where we see fit, a little bit by a little bit. Now, of course, what I just did didn't make sense. So I was adding the bounce light to the top of this leaf, right? But there's a leaf above it that's kind of catching a little bit more of the light next to it. But this one catches this one at the bottom, like so, like that, just a little bit. And we want to make it pretty clean, but we want it to kind of trail off a little bit. So wherever you feel like that light is going to touch, that's where we want to add it. So it may touch just a bit here. Now, when we come to our branches here, we can add just a little bit of light. Let's say that this is sort of catching this light from our fairy lights, and that'll kind of help light the scene. And there's another way that you can do this, but for right now we're going to add the harder bounce light, and then we can come back in and smudge it out if we feel like it's too hard, or we can sort of blend it out a little bit. but something kind of like this, where it's just catching ever so slightly, just a little bit of the light, right? And what we can do from here is we'll zoom out to see if we like that, if we feel like we can add a little bit more of that, maybe a little more diffused light to it. But I'm doing this to sell the idea that this is glowing. And again, I still have my symmetry ruler on, so that means that whatever I do on this one side is going to show up on the other. Now, because of the way that our people are positioned, it may or may not show up. So for instance, we have it here, but we don't see that because it's covered by the hand. So I'll go back and tweak that a little bit later. But we're just going to kind of add this in where it makes sense. Now, in the background, there's a lot happening, right? We have our pillar, and then we have these larger leaves. Now, because these larger leaves are sitting in front of the pillar, we may feel inclined to put our bounce light on top of these leaves. But what I want to do is actually push the pillar back. So I'm not going to add the bounce light to these leaves because I want to create the illusion that they're in front of the pillar. What I'm going to do is add it back here, right? So we'll add some of this bounce light back here, and in this regard, we're just going to add some squiggles and things like that. It doesn't have to be anything particularly fancy. In this case, it is adding where I don't want it. So what I'll do is put that back. I'm going to take off my symmetry ruler. I'm going to clean up that area really quickly before I forget where it showed up on his hand. We don't need that. We don't need that there. We'll kind of do something like so. We might make that a little bit softer, but in the meantime, what we'll do is grab that pen tool and we'll just kind of add in a little bit of squiggles and things like that where it may catch back here, right? And then we can blend this out with our smudge tool, and it doesn't show up too much, right? Because we don't need it. We really don't need it to, but we may add just a little bit of light. If I can get a straight line, a little bit of light to the pillar. And then what I'll do is I will take the smudge and we're going to smudge that out just to soften it up a little bit, like so, right? And we can do that again. We can add a little bit more if we want it harder. We can add just a bit more. And this, my friends, is what to me polishes off an image. But you don't want to go overboard, right? You just want to add it a little bit by a little bit. And then you can soften it or make it harder as you go. And so this is one of the things that I do typically to polish off an image and to finish it up. We'll just kind of play with the light. And this kind of makes sense again because we have these glowing fairy lights. Now, I don't like how wide this smudge is. So I'm going to come in and draw that back some like so. And then what I could also do is we can zoom out a bit just to see what we have. See if we need to go softer in certain areas, and it looks like we may be able to, especially here. We'll soften this up a bit. But again, this kind of sells the idea that we have these glowing lights in our background. So yeah, allow yourself as you create to make happy accidents, man. Some of this stuff will work and some of it won't. Some of it will look exactly the way we want it to look, and some of it just won't. Right? So it's kind of the nature of it. But you sort of have to have patience with the process. I feel like just have a little bit of patience. I'm going to add just a bit, and that is way too much and way too harsh. So what I'm going to do is try to blend that out just a bit, like so. Like so. And because I don't have my symmetry ruler on, now I have to go back and do the same thing over here to the other side. But maybe we can make it in a slightly different place. And again, because this is super duper harsh, we can blend this out some, make it a part of the glowing aspects of the pillar, the sort of the texture that we've created. And that's what I would do there. I think that's pretty good. And I can zoom out just to see how I like it. Again, this art, I feel like, is a lot of push and pull. It is a lot of experimentation, just being patient with yourself. I'm going to turn off the sketch just so I can kind of see what we're working with, right? That gives me a much more honest read of what's on the page. That looks good. So far, I probably will soften up just a little bit this particular, just the edge of this, right? Like so. And we can always add in like brush strokes for this bounce light where we feel like we could or should. And then we can add some more of that glow sort of to this dark area. just to seal it a little bit. And then what I'll do is I'll take that blending tool and just blend it out. And that's it, right? Nothing too fancy. Just adding little small nuances, right? And I feel like doing that, even though it's a small detail and it may not even read very strong, maybe extremely subtle, I feel like just adding those little small details helps sort of polish off your image, right? So there's always these little things that we can add as finishing touches. We can blend them out a bit and to sell the idea that these are glowing. Again, this is the Four of Wands, so I do kind of want the eye to go to that, and it's all I'm kind of focusing on. So the next thing that we have is our broom. So we'll do the same thing once I put the the texture of the broom. I've been kind of procrastinating this broom primarily because I don't think I've ever drawn a broom. Maybe, I don't know if that's the reason, but we'll go ahead and try and see what I come up with. Again, allowing myself to make these happy accidents and let you guys see. I believe I modeled this broom after this one, so we'll go this route. Now, what I'm gonna do before I leave is I am going to name this Fairy Light Bounce Light. Did I spell that right? Yep. Alrighty, now we have our broom down here. Now, as a part of this broom, I'm supposed to have some flowers and things like that. I don't know yet if I'm going to add flowers or if I just do like a nice ribbon. But the main thing that I want to do is just add the basic information, and then on a very separate layer, probably on the same one that I have the original lights on, I'll go ahead and add some lights to the broom itself. So first thing I gotta do is go find a layer. Hopefully I named it. I do try my best to be intentional about naming my layers. Sometimes things kind of slip through the cracks, so I have to figure out where the broom is. Actually, you know what? Clip Studio has a hit tool for that. So let's see what it says. There it is, broom. Now that way that I don't have to go through and try to click and find and scroll and do all of that. All right, broom, child. Here we go. Now, when I drew this broom, of course, I was all leaning into basic shapes. So I wasn't necessarily, like, I'm glad it looks like a broom. But for the most part, I was just kind of looking at a pyramid that was laying on its side. And, of course, a cylinder for the handle. I'm going to turn the canvas a bit. Uh-oh, what did I do? I'm going to turn the canvas so that I can get a better angle at this. This is one of the advantages I feel like of digital art. I don't know. I love digital art. I still have that calling to go and do some traditional stuff. I have found some more art supplies, man. Found some more art supplies. I found some more sketchbooks. So I'm really excited about getting into that. So maybe that's something that I'll add to my stories. I have not been very good about posting on social media here lately, just because I have a whole lot of stuff going on. I just don't have the time to devote to it. But maybe that's something that I can add, like do like really quick studies and like add it to my story or something like that, just so you guys can kind of see what I do, especially when I'm going out to like the parks to draw. That's a whole lot of fun. But since it's getting cold and whatnot, maybe we'll approach it that way. All right, so I am going to make sure that we know that this is a three-dimensional object. So I'm adding a shadow to the front of this broom. I'm also going to add some deeper details to this. I'm not reaching for perfect yet, right? As a matter of fact, the sketch that I have is a little bit distracting, so I'm going to turn it off just so I can kind of see what I'm doing. All right, so I want to make sure that we make this look like it has like the straw and all of that. So fun fact, when I was researching for this card, specifically researching for the jumping of the broom ceremony. Now, this is something that I always associate with African Americans just because it is so strongly a part of our tradition. What I found was, of course, slavery. I guess a lot of stuff kind of traces back to that. What I've actually found was very interesting. So, of course, when it came to navigating marriage ceremony and things like that, when it came to slave owners owning slaves and allowing them to partake in certain traditions, there was a notion that, of course, anything other than British was not white, right? Including Irish, including all of these other European classes of people. They were not considered white by most British landowners and people owners, right? Slave owners. And so they, a lot of traditions came over with people from Ireland and from different European places. One of those traditions was jumping the broom. Now, they would allow slaves to jump the broom under the idea that it was not a Christian thing to do, because of course it was a very Christian nation at that time. And they considered it to be a pagan act. And so they allowed them to jump the broom because you are less than we are, and pagan is less than we are. And those traditions from other, even though they're all European, those traditions from other European people were considered less than. And so that's what we were given. We were given the thing that was less than. So sure, you can jump the broom, right? And so that was regarded as the thing that they allowed us to do. Now, of course, like everything else, we put our own seasoning on it, right? We put our own seasoning on it. We put our own stank on it. We make it our own, right? As African Americans, as the history has been told and shown and demonstrated and continues to be held up, those traditions, right? But I thought it was really, really interesting to find sort of the origin of that, specifically when it comes to us. Now, I wanted to include that in this because, again, that is one of our traditions, I would say, and it apparently is a tradition for other cultures as well, right? Not just ours. But I wanted to include that in this particular card. One, because we hold such a fond sort of connotation to jumping the broom. It's something that a lot of people look forward to. I looked at my dad's, I think he had a portrait painted of when him and my stepmom got married, and I believe they did it, and I feel like they got their broom still, right? And so that is something that we share in common with other cultures. It's just something that we made our own. But I wanted to include that because we have the idea that it is strictly ours. It is certainly something that we've made our own. But it is so unique, I feel like, to our story, just sort of being given something that was deemed pagan, but still taking that thing and making it our own. We see this reflected a lot in the food, soul food specifically. Of course, slave people or enslaved people were given the scraps. We were given the parts, the throwaway parts, and we were able to sort of take that and make something out of it. And it became very synonymous with our particular cuisine, especially here in the South. So jumping the broom has a very similar story. And I find that super duper interesting. I also found out a whole lot about some of the Christmas traditions and things like that recently that I found very interesting. A lot of that traces back to being given things that we were thought to be less than, and then sort of making it something grander, right? Another great example of just a story I learned when I was in college that I always found funny and fascinating at the same time. So I learned from Dr. Hall at the University of Tennessee, my African American Studies class, that there was a thing people did called a cakewalk, right? So it became a dance and things like that. But the dance originated from black folks making fun of white people putting on these fancy events, and they, you know, we tend to find things very funny. We don't take a whole lot seriously. So we would be outside black folks would be outside making fun of these fancy shindigs. But white people would see that and make fun of the black people who were doing these cakewalks or these funny dances that they thought were so funny. And then they would take that and put it into minstrel shows. But all the while, they're sort of making fun of themselves, not knowing that we were making fun of them. It's a whole thing, right? History to me is so fascinating. It is something that I feel like we don't talk a whole lot about. Even with the atrocities that came with the enslavement, there's so much story there, right? There's so many things there for us to learn about. But that was something I found very fascinating about jumping the broom as I was researching this card, because I had no idea, right? So as I'm adding in details to this, especially from different cultures, especially from my own, one of the things that I seek to do is sort of find an understanding about what that is, so that as I'm adding it, I'm not just adding it arbitrarily, not just adding something uninformed. I do want to make sure that I understand, right, the things that I add to the cards, so that again it adds to the sort of richness and the fabric of the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. There's so much thought that goes into these things. I don't really explain half of it, right? Even when I'm doing the development, when we do the development part, but I do go really, really deep into understanding sort of the history of certain things, understanding the symbols of certain things, so that if I'm putting something in, I can explain it, right? I don't want to do something I can't explain. So I want to be able to explain exactly why I made certain decisions in the artwork, and also leave it for you guys to find and be curious about. If you're curious, right? Be curious about certain decisions that I make in the artwork that I create. So I really, really take my time with it. That's one of the things I'm really, really happy about being such a long project, is that I do allow myself the time to sort of be very deliberate and intentional about the kinds of images that I create. And that was always important for me from the beginning. I just didn't see it taking this long. Right? It is what it is. I didn't necessarily see it taking as long as it has taken, but the power in that is that I get to sit down and read research papers, right? Because if someone did a whole research paper on the origin of jumping the broom and where it came from and why it became synonymous with us and why we hold it so near and dear, but where it actually came from, right? So I found all of that to be super duper interesting. Just the idea that someone is less than you, and so we're going to give you the throwaway things because you don't deserve this thing that we hold exclusive to us. It's just weird, man. Why? You know what I mean? It makes absolutely no sense. And the fact that we are able to make something out of it is such an interesting thing. Another thing, I always mention that I love the banjo. I own 2 of them. I own one that I made myself. I actually built it myself. It's made out of a gourd. It has a goat skin over it. It's real beautiful. I stained it. It's a really nice instrument. So I love banjos. But one of the fascinations that I have with banjos goes back to their origins, right? It came from an akanting, which is the name of the instrument that comes from, I feel like, the region of Ghana, because at the time that people were being moved from Africa to the Americas, Ghana, Nigeria, all of these places didn't exist. They weren't countries then, they were just territories. So that I feel like the Akanting comes from Ghana, but I could be absolutely wrong in that. But the banjo was something that is uniquely African American, right? That is an African American instrument. Now, of course, it became bluegrass. Of course, it became synonymous with hillbillies in the Appalachian Mountains, which I happen to be from. But it became synonymous with those things. But that was not stolen, but adapted from African Americans. I don't know if it was stolen or not, but just kind of taken from African Americans, put into minstrel shows, and became popular through that medium. But because that is something very uniquely Black, right? I find that so super fascinating, and sort of learning the history of where these instruments come from. The banjo, right? I don't know very many Black banjo players. But there is one called the Black Banjo Reformation Project, I believe, where there is a nonprofit that specializes in telling the history of the banjo, right? They bringing Black people into that instrument, into that art form, and learning about how to play it, how to craft it, where it came from, all of that. I find it just so interesting, right? It's so rich, because one of the things that I see a lot of times, especially from people who don't necessarily have a history or a link to the enslaved peoples in the United States. Maybe their parents didn't go through that. Maybe they immigrated later on after the fact. I think the misconception, or the thing that I found so weird, right, is that they feel like African Americans don't have culture, while also mimicking our culture is just a strange landscape. But just to sort of be aware of where a lot of those things come from, to me, I just find it fascinating, man. I do. I find it very interesting to learn new things and learn new facts about that. To fact check, to sort of learn from people who have spent lifetimes studying this stuff, and digging through records, and digging through journals, and all of this information that's out there. I just find it really, really interesting. Right? It's right up my alley, which is one of the reasons why I took African American studies in college in the first place. And I'm really glad that I did, because one thing I will say, I grew up in a city. So Memphis is a very Black city. The city that I grew up in is not as much, right? And so, but with that, we did learn quite a bit, but we learned them in a roundabout kind of way. So certain things like the Black involvement in the Civil War that took place in my hometown, I did not learn about until I was much older. But at the same time, they showed us things like Glory while I was in high school to let us know that there was an involvement. They just didn't link the two things together. I thought that was really interesting. What else? All kinds of things, right? So I'm really fortunate that my family, specifically my dad, had a real strong hand in making sure that we were aware of certain things in history as I was coming up, so that we can have an appreciation for who we are, because so much of what we see on in the media, especially as I was coming up, right, was the antithesis of that, right? And even less so, or even more so now, because we have so many negative images to, and when it comes to like social media, a lot of the negative images tend to get much more traction. When it comes to reality shows, a lot of the movies and things like that. So to have that sort of foundation shows up, I feel like, in my art. Now, when it comes to the fight, the good fight, right? I feel like this is my way of doing that, just sort of, again, painting the picture of positive representation. Because if you can see yourself in an elevated light, you can see yourself, if you can see yourself or you know somebody that look like this bride and groom, right? Jump in the broom. Or you can see yourself or know someone who looks like the high priestess or the hermit or, the fool in this particular project. If you can see yourself in those images of greatness, I feel like it's easier for us to strive for that, right? Whereas, again, when I was coming up, my career options were doctor, lawyer, teacher, military. That was it, right? Because that's all that I had access to. I knew people who were in the military. My dad was in the military. My great uncle was in World War II. My great grandfather was in the First World War. I always get tongue tied. He was in the First World War. His father had been sold 5 times. I found the article, my mom sent me an article of my granny's grandfather who had come back from the war, who had brought all this money, had sent money home to the bank, and they would not allow him to get it because they didn't believe it was his, right? This was in the newspaper. In my hometown, in the newspaper. Him not having necessarily adequate medical care, and his wife not having adequate medical care, and dying at a young age, leaving behind a group of kids that were my grandparents, and them having to work in domestic work and in the railroad and in different places like that. All of that's sort of a part of my own story, and all of that is stuff that I would like to put into this. But I feel like if they had, especially my grandparent and her grandmother, my maternal grandmother and her siblings, I feel like if they had access to the idea of something greater than our struggles, they may have, strived for that. So a lot of what I do for this particular project kind of aims for that target, right? Making sure that if whoever's picking up this deck feels good as they're using this deck, right? I don't want you to feel the woe is me, because so much of our life, so much of our history, so much of our family's experience and our grandparents' experience and their parents and so on and so forth is steeped in like blood and guts, right? And just trauma, just collective trauma, right? I just did not want this to be the primary focus of this project. I want to create this is what we can do, right? And this is what it can be. And let's go get that, right? We can use those things that our grandparents experienced. We can use those experiences that our great-grandparents experienced, and then we can create something far greater than any of us could have ever imagined. And so that's kind of the gist of the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. Again, and then it's just a tarot deck, right? I'm putting all of this in this. It is just a tarot deck. It is a set of cards that people will use however they see fit. But I feel like infusing it with that level of love and care, I think it's going to read through. I think that anytime I go back and look at some of the images that I've created over the 6 years, and some of them I ain't seen in a long time, even though I played a little slideshow, which I'll play here in a moment, periodically to show you guys what they look like. Some of them I forgot I even created, but I can see like where I was thinking when I created those things. So that is my aim here. I want to create a positive representation of what could be, right? And I want to draw from my own personal experiences. I want to draw from the experiences of my family and my friends and people, you guys, some of you guys' experiences, because I found that so many of you guys connect to these images. And so it's very important to me to, as I'm doing that, to make sure that I have a clear understanding of what it is that I'm including in these images. So it is getting ready to auto save, which is right on time. Let me show y'all, I'll give you just a reminder of what this looks like. Hopefully it won't slow down too tough. Let me see if I can find it, y'all, because as soon as I get to clicking around on this doggone computer, it gets to fight me. So we gonna see if it comes up. Let me see, because it's thinking about it now. I got the little bubble coming up. So if it allows me to, I will show you guys what the cards look like. And if not, we'll come back to, there it is. Okay, let me see. All right now. Maybe not. We'll see. I'm going to try. No, there it is. Come on now. There we go. Here it is. So yeah, that's sort of the aim, right? Even in the sort of the art that I would create for the comic book conventions, again, it's just always going to be some part of the artist in the art that they create, right? So a lot of this is sort of the fabric of my own personal story, not just from my own spiritual experiences, but again, from the experiences of the people who came before me who are still around. My granny is 90. How old is granny? 93. She's still living, right? She lived through all of it. Quite a bit of it. She met her grandparents who were enslaved at a certain point, right? Met her father, of course she did. Her father who had fought in the First World War, brother who had fought in the Second World War, and kids who had gone off into the military. And so there is so much history in it. But I do find that fascinating as I am, again, looking into things, making sure they match up, making sure they make sense to the deck, not just putting something in just because they black. Not just putting something in just because aesthetically it fits or it looks right. I want to make sure that there is so much intention that goes in it. And again, I keep saying it, it's just a tarot deck, right? But I do want to make sure that the energy is right because I feel like that'll translate into people's readings. Now, when it comes to tarot, for me, I have a collection of about 20 decks or so, and it's Tarot, Oracle, and Lenormand. Have a lot of decks, right? I really enjoy collecting them, mostly because I enjoy the artwork. But what I find when I'm using them is that they each have a personality. Again, because we can always tell something from the artist that created the images that we're consuming, whether that is through television, movies, photography, illustration, books. When we're reading an author's work, we're sort of getting an inner glimpse into who that person is that created that artwork. And so what I find with the decks that I own is that each deck has a personality. So I don't know exactly what the personality of this one is, but one of the things that I will have and show you guys how to do once this is published is how to interview this deck. So we'll kind of see what the personality of the Cosmic Gateways Tarot is. Now, of course, I have my own set of intentions when it comes to creating this project, when it comes to creating the images and the story that I would like to tell across the board. But what I am really, really looking forward to is what you guys will see in it, right? What will you guys get from the images? How will you guys enjoy it and enjoy the quality, enjoy the reading experience? And what kinds of answers will you get from pulling the cards from the Cosmic Gateways Tarot? That is what I'm really looking forward to. Because I know as someone who pulls cards, I don't do it as much. I don't read for other people nearly as much as I used to. But I don't do it as much for myself either as much as I used to. But I do know that I will go to certain decks for certain kinds of answers, right? So I have one that is extremely straightforward. That's the Crow Tarot by, I think, MJ McClellan, I think it's the night. What you say her name? Child, I don't know. But it is the Crow Tarot is one of my favorites because it is straightforward. I'm talking about extremely straightforward. I have one that I use for anything that I'm trying to sort of overcome in my own sort of growth, right? And so I think one of the misconceptions about tarot is that you're connecting to this like spirit and demons and all kinds of crazy stuff people be saying about tarot. But more often than not, before you connect to anything outside of yourself, it's just an extension of you, right? So as you are pulling cards, as you are asking questions, you're answering things that deep down you already have the answer to. It's just kind of coming forth and making itself plain through the images of these cards. And so with each card, there is an image, of course, there is a number, and there is a name. There is so much associated with each individual card. So with the number, you get numerology. So in numerology, which is a whole other science, you get information based on a number, right? With each suit, especially with the minor arcanas, where that will be the wands, that will be your pentacles, your swords, and your cups. Each suit deals with an element, and it also deals with astrology. So you get information from the astrology as well. And then, of course, there's the visual storytelling aspect of it. So if you are looking at the Four of Wands, and depending on whatever your question is, you may get certain information based on what story is being told in each card. So as I am creating the cards, I'm keeping all of that in mind, right? But what helps me is that this deck is sort of myth deck. So I do have that sort of blueprint available So I can say, okay, well, the common interpretation of the Four of Wands is marriage and community and coming together and celebration and things like that. So when I go into creating the Four of Wands, I'm like, okay, how can I picture this in a way that makes sense for this deck and makes sense for the world that I'm creating? So jumping the broom became the thing. Now, as I'm jumping the broom, I had something in my mind, so like, let me look that up, right, to make sure that I at least know sort of the backstory of where that tradition started, so that I can add that and infuse it and make sure that I am very deliberate in adding it to the image. And so that's what I did. So for each of the cards that comes up, what I will do typically is I will look at my own understanding of the card, right? I'll often look at the numerology. I often look at the astrology and the elements that are associated with each particular card, no matter what. It doesn't really matter to me if it's minor arcana or major arcana. From there, I'll say, okay, what would a situation like this look like, right? Or I'll say, what is a keyword or phrase that I can use to help me create the card? And then I'll use that and I will start and I'll go from there. So when I was working on the fives, which was going to be the next set, I'm still not really sure. So that's a decision I really got to make like ASAP. But when I was actually going forward with planning out the fives and getting ready, the trick that I was coming up or running into, or sort of the challenge that I was running into, was trying to figure out a way to articulate those ideas in a slightly different way. Because my goal is not to make a clone deck. Of course, there'll be quite a bit of overlap between this and the source material, which is the Rider-Waite-Smith. But I do want to sort of challenge myself to tell a different story, or just tell a story from a slightly different perspective, or like give additional context in the visual storytelling aspect of this deck. So that's where we are. I'm really, really happy with the way that this particular card is coming out, and I'm thankful for it, because child, I ain't ready for the and been ready to make the next set of cards. So this gives me a nice long break before I get into it. But I am sort of at that stage that I try to avoid, where I'm like kind of twiddling my thumbs because I'm not really sure which direction I would like to go in. That is a decision that I have to make as soon as possible, so that we can move forward, so that we can get the next set going. And again, I'm thinking about doing the sun and the moon only because I had opened up the cards that I had previously, or the illustrations that I previously started. I can kind of see where I would like to go with the sun, and I may even be able to use the image that I had in it just to describe it. One of the aspects of the diaspora that I was leaning into was carnival, and so I had this beautiful, big old beautiful deity who has her carnival feathers on, and sort of she has her hand out, and I can't remember what it was I was going to have because I didn't draw it in. What I was going to have floating above her hand, I'm not really sure yet. From that, I don't know if I'm going to keep the same person, but my idea, which has always been my idea for the sun and the moon, is to have them be matching deities. So I'm not really sure yet how I would like to articulate those ideas. So it'll come together at some point. It has to, because we got to get it done. So we'll have to come together at a certain point. So I think we're going to wrap it up here. I'm probably going to work on this a little bit later this evening, the broom, just to get the broom out the way. So that only thing I have left to do for this card, I need to give my bride some shoes. Maybe not. Maybe we'll have her without shoes. I got her toenails done. But I have shoes drawn in, so I actually do need to go ahead and give her shoes. But I also want to add the shadow underneath them to sell the idea that they are jumping over this broom. So the shadow will actually show up on the broom itself, as well as we may make the shadow a bit long behind them, just to, again, sell that idea. And then beyond that, I think I have the husband's hand to do. I don't know why I've been procrastinating that, but I got to get that done. And then we'll have the top of this canopy to do, which is looking really, really good. I'm always surprised, again, because this is the part of the image that I traced. So as I'm putting together as I'm coloring this, right, as I'm rendering it out, I'm looking at blobs and squiggles because that's all I trace. So I'm actually just kind of doing a paint by numbers kind of deal. But there are no numbers, so I'm just kind of matching it up as I go. But it looks real good. So I'm real happy with that. So we're going to continue this on Wednesday, I believe, which is the 24th. We might come back Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm not real sure. We'll see how that goes because we got the holidays coming up. So if you guys are celebrating the holidays, if I don't see you next week, I hope you guys have a great holiday. But let me know in the comments below how you guys are liking the image so far, how you guys are liking this project, if it's something that you can see yourself using. if you just want to say hey, I want to hear from you and see how you like this stream. If you did like it, please hit the thumbs up because that helps me out so much. That'll help me get to that goal of 1,000 subscribers even faster. And we're at 801, so let's go. I'm so excited for that. Got a couple of new folks coming in this week, so I'm really happy to have y'all here. Again, if you would like to do a deeper dive into this deck, I know I talked a little bit about this particular card, but if you would like to learn just more about the backstory of this deck, check out last Sunday's live stream. That was December the 14th. So I think it also has a purple thumbnail, but it'll say December 14th. So check out December 14th's live stream because I took a deep dive. Right? There are also a couple of videos on this channel that talk a little about the hidden messages and the hidden symbols and things like that within the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. That'll be under the videos tab. There are 2 of those. There is a part 1 and a part 2. I do talk a little bit about the spiritual aspect of it, the spiritual deities that come up, some of the symbolism that is in each of the cards. Specifically, I believe with the major arcanas, because I don't know that I had gotten to the minors yet by then, but I'm not really sure. But you guys can check that out if you like. Now, if you like a little more chill live stream, typically I will stream on Wednesdays at 12:45 p.m. Central Standard Time. Since Wednesday is Christmas Eve, I'm not really sure I'll be here, but if I do, I hope to see you guys there. So be on the lookout for the schedule, so it'll kind of pop up on my feed, or hopefully it'll pop up on you guys' feed to let you know that I'll be streaming on Wednesday. If not, watch out for the stories because I usually just kind of post it in the stories to let you know that I am streaming. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys have a happy, creative, and prosperous week. And if you celebrate the holidays, I hope you have a wonderful holiday. I hope you enjoy yourself, enjoy your family, enjoy home, enjoy the break if you off, right? And just have a really wonderful day. So again, without further ado, I'll see you next week. Peace.